Okay, so here's a quick overview. So we've asked you to do some fact files on two pressure groups, one insider, one outsider. So I'm going to do, it's probably going to be two videos rather than one long one. So I'll do two shorter ones. I'm just going over some of the key points that you need from this, which you may not have spotted. Now I'm not going to go through everything you need to have. Some things I will gloss over. Some of the things are a little bit easier, and so I will hint at those. But there's some more specific stuff that you may have missed. Now, of the two, we were looking at the um, New Schools Network and Greenpeace. Now, Greenpeace I think is mentioned in your textbook, so you can actually get quite a bit from your textbook as well. So this will focus a little bit more on some things of the New Schools Network. And if you haven't watched it, I've also uploaded a quick video, very short summary of sort of education policy at secondary level from 1950 onwards, just to give you an idea of some of the things we're going to talk about here and how they will be useful. Now, New Schools Network, they're the insider group, and that means they work closely with government. Greenpeace they do work with government, and we'll look at an example of that, but they're the outsider group, and we'll look at why someone like Greenpeace, in one way, you look at these groups and you say, well, surely it's the government that makes decisions. Decisions are made in Parliament, and so being an insider group is surely the best way to get things done. But actually, it's more difficult than that, because it is, what do you want to achieve? What are you trying to do? And actually, Greenpeace is quite interesting because there are some inside elements to what they do, but a lot of it is them being an outsider group. So some of the more basic stuff about this. So New Schools Network, what is it that they want to do? They want to have free schools. That's what they want. They want more free schools, and they want to help anyone who wants to create a free school. Again, if you look at the previous video that I've put there, the free school is one that has a lot more autonomy over what happens, rather than one that has strict controls from a local authority. Greenpeace, what interest do they have? Well, actually, that's a huge open question. It's such a big group that looks at so many different things. You could talk about whaling, you could talk about oil drilling, you can talk about fracking. There's huge numbers of different areas. Greenpeace is a very big group, so you can't say it's something specific to a single group. So, who might join? Well, actually, Greenpeace could be anybody. And we've looked at this when we've talked about sectional groups and causal groups. Who might want to join them? Well, anybody might want to join them. Anybody who's got an interest in the natural environment, in what they like, certain things being fairer. Why do they join? Because actually they want to make a difference. They want to support a group that stops possible oil drilling, who stop fracking. There may be something local to them, maybe it's an international issue. That's what they might be looking at. Who might join the New Schools Network? Well, you're looking there as someone who possibly wants to set up a school, or wants to create a free school or a group of people. So what we'll look at in a little more detail is the different groups and sort of how they work, and see if we can look at certain things that you may or may not have written down. So we'll start with the New Schools Network. I mean, the formatting is a bit off on this slide, but what is a free school? I mean, this is taking them away from government control, from local authority control, and letting them say, you know what, this is how we think a school should be run. So, I mean, how long should a school day last? Some of you start school at 8:30, 8:40, 8:50, finish at 2:50, 3:10. Well, actually, a free school will say, right, we're going on till 5. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? So, some schools might say, right, we're not going to give a student homework to do. We'll finish our day at 3, and then they have 2 hours in school in certain conditions where they can do their homework. free schools can teach what they want. They will say, look, there is a broad balanced curriculum, but actually, why can't we do that? I mean, a lot. You look at employment laws as well. So most schools will have to have someone who is trained as a teacher and has teaching qualifications. Well, actually, some schools will say, well, why should we? Surely, rather than have a technology teacher who's trained as a teacher, what if you've got someone who's worked in carpentry for 30 years? Wouldn't they be a fantastic person? So it gives them a lot more flexibility. And one of the things is that they say actually this helps people who, if you need alternative provision. So if you've got those who have special educational needs or behavioural difficulties, you can have a school that works for them and provides them with skills and qualifications that is not a sort of one size fits all that might work elsewhere. So one of the ones that we looked at is the West London Free School. A really interesting one. So if we look down through its curriculum, and I'll look at this in a little bit more detail. So look at the top bit here. What you see is West London Free School aims to provide children with a classical liberal education. So one that is centred around the best and most important work in the humanities and scientists. And so things like by giving all our pupils firm financial experience to pass at least 8 academically rigorous GCSEs and go on to study at a leading university. So this is the key, the bit that gives it away a little bit. This is about high expectations, high academic standards. That is what this is about. Now you forget some schools will say, look, we don't, if students get good grades, that's great, and we want all our students to do well, but we're not focusing on just the best students. It's not just about results. But this school say actually, they're not saying it's about results, but what they're saying is we are going to have this in a sort of classical or traditional style education. So if we go back and look at what that means, so this is taken from their website, and they use E.D. Hirsch's book as a sort of base of what they want. And this really gives you an idea. And they talk about this idea of intellectual capital, and these sort of culturally central facts and skills, and sort of identify property of national heritage, stable over time. Essentially what this is saying is, look, there is a way that people used to be taught. There is a way in the last 100 years that people used to be taught. There are certain subjects that used to be taught. There are certain ways they used to be taught. And actually that worked. There is a way that this happens. So we go back to their website. For the first 3 years, they'll follow certain national curriculum, but otherwise you have Latin, ancient history, you have sort of geography, modern language, PE. And then you go on to year 10 and 11, so modern languages, art, classics, music. So actually what they're talking about there is, there is what we call a traditional way of learning. And there's a traditional style of learning and a traditional subject, a range of subjects. So if you've got here, the most effective traditions occur, where are we? Here we go. With an emphasis on order, discipline, and the introduction of material in small, easily mastered chunks. Now, you might say, or some people might say, look, and this is what people who advocate for free school say, is that now education has changed. It takes things away from the student and the teacher just gives them the answers. It makes it too easy for the student. And actually it shouldn't be like that. It should be how it used to be. Make the student do lots of reading, make them do things that are academically difficult, and that is what will help them. And the way you do that is through order, discipline, and introduction to in small, easily mastered chunks, including lots of whole classroom instruction. So how you might imagine when you think about how we might look to do Kahoots and card sorts and try and really change things up, you say, well, actually no, all that stuff's a waste of time. You should just do how things used to be. You tell students what to do, they do it. And he talks about he doesn't like things like holistic learning, lifelong learning, child-centered education, all these kinds of terms. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever sat in schools, or maybe in the past, and this has pretty much been debunked now, but did you ever do anything where they said, you're a visual learner, audio learner, kinesthetic learner? Do you learn best using your hands? Do you learn best listening? Well, actually, lots of evidence has shown that that's nonsense. And that's what Hirsch is saying, that every few years, if you just follow what the new thing is, you will end up thinking you're a kinesthetic learner with the holistic learning and high order learning skills. It's not. That's not how it works. And this last bit here, one should provide an excellent grounding in reading, writing, and arithmetic as a necessary but relatively less than compelling part of a broader education. So what the West London Free School is saying, look, there is a way that we think it should be done. It is a very traditional way, and that is how we think you should be teaching. And they want more people to have the freedom. Now, not everybody's going to agree with them. Actually, they don't necessarily mind people agreeing with them, but what they want is for people to say, actually, we want a certain type of education. So a good example of that is a religious school. So school was held, we're going to teach something close to a national curriculum. We're going to teach maths, sciences, British history, geography, that kind of thing. But there's going to be a big focus on Catholicism or Islam or whatever the religious school is. There's going to have a big focus on that. And that is what is important to this school. Now, if we go into the pressure group itself, here are two key figures. Now, if you haven't looked at them, I would suggest pausing the video now and doing a bit of research on them before I talk about them, because both interesting characters, but they do tell you a lot about sort of insider roles. Actually, what I will do is, because I can only record so long, it only lets me upload videos of a certain length, I will stop this video now and we'll continue with on the next video.